Hey there guys, got a one-shot review for you today. We're going to be taking a look at the absolutely classic graphic novel, A History of Violence. This was written by John Wagner, who some of you guys may know as the creator of Judge Dredd. We are going to be doing more Judge Dredd soon, so stay tuned for that. And it has art by Vince Locke, who some of you metalheads might know as longtime cover artist for the death metal legends Cannibal Corpse. It was published by Paradox Press in the year 1997. It's 300 black and white pages of paperback goodness. Basic gist of the plot is this. Couple of thugs are just driving along and decide to waste a couple of hitchhikers to steal whatever money they have on them. They don't have very much. They get pretty pissed and decide to move along to the next town and stick someplace up there. This leads them to the diner of one Tom McKenna, just a small town, sort of timid guy. He's known around the community as just, a salt of the earth kind of fella. Good stand-up citizen. His diner is like a staple of the area. Everybody kind of comes in there, lots of regulars. Anyways, these guys roll up in there and they're gonna go ahead and rob Tom, and he's trying to be real calm about it until he realizes that they clearly plan on killing him as well. So he whips their ass with the coffee pot, takes one of their guns, wastes one of the dudes, blowing his ass out the fucking window in front of a bunch of people, and holds the other guy at gunpoint basically until the police arrive. Now naturally, being that, this is a small town where stuff like that doesn't happen, and he's kind of an unassuming sort of soda jerk diner owner type dude, this makes him quite the local celebrity. He's not really about this. He doesn't like the attention. He just wants his life to go back to normal. Pretty quickly though, he realizes that there's a black car kind of following him around. Eventually this black car shows up at his diner, and these kind of unsavory characters from New York come in and start sort of questioning him about his appearance on TV and the news and stuff like that. The old guy with them, John Torino, recognizes him as this fella Joey from New York, even though Tom seems to have no recollection of this or have any idea what this guy's talking about. He is missing a finger, however, and this old man with one eye happens to have that finger in his possession, or a finger that allegedly belongs to Tom. In any case, these guys keep up the pressure. They kind of start harassing him and his wife, sort of making veiled threats at them. They do have some police protection, but there's only so much they can do since these guys haven't actually done anything or directly threatened them. As this is going on, turns out these guys are like clearly mob connected dudes from New York, and they think that, Tom is this kid that they know that did them wrong somehow back in New York. Tom maintains that he has no idea what these guys are fucking talking about, and they're kind of questioning it too, because this John Torino guy's pretty old. The stuff that happened with this Joey person was a long time ago, so his memory's kind of hazy and he's not for sure either. Until they run across Tom's son, and he sees like that younger version of Tom in his son and immediately recognizes him as Joey. So they kidnap the kid and go to the house, confronting Tom and basically telling him he's got to come out and give himself up or they're gonna waste his kid. It's at this point that he comes clean to his wife and says that he did know this guy from a long time ago, and that, they've just got to get through this basically. So he goes out there, he confronts those dudes, they get in a bit of a firefight, he wastes two of them, presumably all three of them, and takes a bullet himself. Actually, his wife wastes one of the dudes while he's kicking the shit out of him. It's at this point that he basically, admits to his wife that this probably isn't the end of this, and there's a lot more to the story that she needs to know. The second act of the book kicks off with Tom in the hospital fessing up to his wife and his son about his past. He tells them the story of how these mob guys in New York, when he was young, killed his best friend's brother, Steve. Steve was kind of a big shot kind of a guy, fancied himself a gangster, and he got involved with these mafia dudes, doing odd jobs for him and robbing liquor stores and such. On one such job, he decided to keep the take for himself because he thought none of them were taking any risks. They didn't take too kindly to that, so they took him under a bridge and put a bullet in his head. Naturally, this gave his younger brother, Richie, like a sort of vendetta against these guys. He wanted to take revenge for the death of his brother. Tom and Richie were no angels either. They committed their fair share of crimes, but after the death of his brother, Richie started to get more violent and go off half-cocked and just lose control. So naturally, this started to make, Tom, or Joey as he was known back in those days, quite nervous. Eventually, Richie hatches this plan to wait until all of these mob guys, John Torino, Lou Manzi, the main mob boss who his brother was working for, and the guy who he has the vendetta against, all of the local mob dudes meet up at this restaurant to bring in their take for the month, consolidate all the money and give it to the boss, basically. So Richie wants to go in there, slaughter all of these guys at once, and steal the money. Naturally, Joey is a bit, hesitant to do this because it's fucking nuts, and he would prefer to stay alive, honestly. But when he finds out that his grandma needs like this expensive operation, he decides to take the risk and go along with his friend. So they set up kind of planning this out, pretty meticulously, and gathering the weapons that they will need for this. Tom's still having some second thoughts, but he decides to go along with his friend anyway, just out of pure loyalty. They end up springing this trap on the mafia dudes dressed as Boy Scouts. They've got their Uzis and their tear gas, and they absolutely light the fucking place up, just wasting everybody. John Torino shows up at the end, though. They kind of take some shots at him and flee. Unfortunately, Richie, like most people involved in these mob robberies, took it upon himself to flash the cash around and be a big shot just like his brother before him, so that ended up getting him axed, literally, by John Torino, and then they come for Joey. He flees. In the process, he ends up losing a finger to John via the same axe that killed Richie. He whips him in the face with some barbed wire, which, obviously fucks his eye right up, and he is able to escape, but John Torino vows to, eventually fucking take revenge for this shit on this kid, and he picks up the finger that we know full well he had in the first act of the book. After that, he just kind of explains how he wandered around trying to, sort of create an identity on the run, and eventually ended up in this town, met his wife, started his business, and, years, like 20 years went by. But he thinks if, John Torino dies, that will be the last link to any of this, so they can be free from all of it and not have to worry about it in the future. Unfortunately, the sheriff comes in at the end and breaks the bad news to them that John Torino, in fact, did survive. They were able to patch him up at the hospital, so he's gonna live. And on account of a lot of Tom's story doesn't really make sense, especially after this second firefight with these mob guys where he once again came out on top, there's some detectives from the city that would like to have a word with him. The third and final act of the book opens on Tom having been discharged from the hospital, waiting to talk to these detectives again to sit down to do a formal interview. He gets a mysterious phone call from some people claiming to have Richie still alive, and basically that they've been torturing him all these years waiting to get their hands on Tom. He does this interview with the police, and they basically confirm that if anybody's capable of doing it, it's Lou Manzi Jr., who is the son of Lou Manzi Sr., who they killed when they were kids. Lou Manzi Jr. is an absolute psychopath, genuinely enjoys hurting people, and even if they can give Tom some protection, it's not going to be enough to keep him from Lou Manzi. He gets another call basically confirming that this is what's been going on. They've had Richie held captive for 20 years, slowly cutting pieces off of him, making him pay over and over and over again for the things that they did when they were kids. Tom's attorney basically suggests that they should go to New York and he should confess to these crimes, help them close the books on them, and they might be able to, give him some protection. They do a bit of sightseeing when they're there. They revisit his old neighborhood. He goes to his grandma's grave, and he eventually talks to the authorities in New York, and they tell him in so many words that, outside of confessing to these murders, these mobsters, which they can't charge him for because he was a minor at the time, he really has nothing with these people other than history. They're not just going to give him witness protection because he has history with these guys. You got to give them something that they can use to prosecute. So he essentially realizes that the only choice he has to put an end to all of this is to confront these guys himself on his own. So he sets about doing that, and we get the finale of the book where he has it out with Lou Manzi and his goons in a warehouse where they are torturing Richie. Not gonna explain all that and lay it all out for you guys, just gonna let you enjoy that yourself, though you will see snippets of it on the screen. What I will say is this book is absolutely fucking classic. It was one of the first proper graphic novels I read back in the day, along with stuff like Road to Perdition, From Hell, the Sin City books, that kind of showed me that comics could be more than just superheroes, dudes in tights and capes and crap like that. It's pretty much everything a graphic novel is supposed to be. It's one sweeping story told in one compact volume with great writing, gritty artwork. Everything kind of comes together to give you that graphic novel vibe. It doesn't feel like a collected miniseries because that's not what it is. It feels like what it is, which is a single volume epic. It's basically a movie done in comic book form. form, which makes it no surprise that they eventually did do a feature film of it, starring Viggo Mortensen, directed by David Cronenberg. For a long time, this was a go-to book for me to show people when I was trying to explain to them that, you know, comics aren't just Batman and Superman and shit like that. You can read, you know, crime stuff as well. Look at this. It's like an epic fucking tale of mob revenge. And that really is what A History of Violence is in a nutshell. It's an epic story about how your deep, dark secrets from the city can come to find you even in middle America. Sometimes the mistakes you make in your past come back around to affect your future and to affect the people you love. And you've got to make a decision about how far you're willing to go to protect those people from your past mistakes. If you enjoy mob shit especially, you're probably going to enjoy this. And really, if you just like a good story of a father trying to protect his wife and his kids, it's got that going for it as well. Some people might look down on the art a bit because it is a bit sketchy, but as I said before, it kind of lends to that graphic novel vibe. It's gritty for sure, and as simplistic as it is, Vince Locke manages to paint the violence in a way that you would expect from somebody doing Cannibal Corpse covers, but also manages to make this sketchy little sketchbook world kind of come to life in a way that you probably wouldn't expect from this kind of art style. I've always been very impressed by that, always been very impressed by the book as a whole, and I cannot recommend it enough. I'm gonna kind of go down the list of classic graphic novels, so eventually you'll see Road to Perdition and From Hell and stuff like that up on here as well. But this one got brought up and I decided to revisit it. It had been a couple of years, and boy, let me tell you, it's just as good as the first time I ever read it. So get out there and check it out as soon as possible. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this.